What if I told you that the greatest secret of your existence is hidden in something you do right now, without even noticing? You breathe again and again, thousands of times a day. But behind this ordinary rhythm lies a mystery that sages, mystics, and seekers of truth have guarded for centuries. Helena Blavatsky, one of the most profound voices of esoteric wisdom, hinted that the visible world is only a shadow of deeper realities. And nothing proves this more than the breath itself, the bridge between body and soul, matter and spirit, life and eternity. Every inhale brings life, every exhale releases it. But what about the space in between? That silent pause, so brief that you rarely notice it, holds the power to change everything. Science calls it a function of the nervous system. Mystics call it the gateway to awakening. Blavatsky would say, in that stillness, the illusion of time collapses, and the soul touches what is infinite. Imagine for a moment that every breath you take is more than survival. It is a hidden ritual that connects you to the universe itself. We live our days trapped in noise, distraction, and anxiety. Our minds run, our hearts race, and our bodies follow. Yet in that instant when the breath suspends, all that chaos stops. There is only silence, a vastness waiting to be discovered. And in that vastness lies the possibility of transformation, psychological, emotional, spiritual. It is there that the old self dissolves and a new perception begins to rise. This is not about abstract philosophy. This is about you, about the untapped force inside your own being. For centuries, those who learned to master the breath did not only find calm, they found a key to hidden dimensions of consciousness, to healing, to power, to liberation. They walked through that secret doorway and returned with a vision of reality most people will never dare to glimpse. So listen closely. The breath you are taking right now may be ordinary, or it may be the beginning of a journey into the extraordinary. Because once you understand what truly happens when the breath stops, when the world pauses with you, you will never see yourself or your life the same way again. Stay with me until the end, and I promise you, what you will discover may shift the very foundation of how you understand existence itself. What if the most powerful secret of your life was hidden in something you do right now? Without any effort, without even thinking. You are breathing. Inhale, exhale, again and again. It feels automatic, mechanical, almost insignificant. But Helena Blavatsky once warned that the truths most people ignore are exactly the ones that hold the greatest mysteries. And your breath, the most common act of your existence, hides a passage that can take you beyond the limits of your body, beyond the illusions of your mind, and closer to the essence of who you really are. Pause for a moment and pay attention. Can you feel the air entering your lungs, expanding your chest, reaching every cell? That movement, so ordinary, is also the rhythm that has kept you alive since your first moment in this world. But here is the unsettling question. What happens in the silence, in the instant between one breath and the next? You may never have noticed it, yet in that fraction of time, life itself seems to stop. No inhalation, no exhalation, only suspension. A fragile stillness where something extraordinary can be revealed. Think about it. Since the dawn of humanity, every culture has tried to understand this mystery. Ancient yogis in India called the breath prana, the vital energy that flows through every being. In China, it was qi, the force that animates the cosmos. In the Hebrew tradition, it was ruach, the divine breath that gives life to all creation. And Blavatsky insisted that all these names were not contradictions, but fragments of a universal truth hidden behind symbols. Could it be that the secret they guarded lies exactly in that pause that separates an inhale from an exhale? Imagine yourself in a dark room where every sound has disappeared. The silence becomes heavy, almost unbearable. Suddenly, in that silence, you begin to notice details you never heard before. The beat of your heart, the subtle hum of your body, even the echo of your own thoughts. That is what happens in the pause between breaths. The external world fades, the noise disappears, and something deeper emerges. The question is, what is it trying to show you? Modern science tells us that when you slow your breathing, when you extend that pause, your brain changes its rhythm. Waves associated with stress give way to states of calm and clarity. But the mystics went further. They claimed that in that pause, the illusion of time collapses. For a moment, past and future vanish, leaving only pure presence. Blavatsky would say that in that emptiness, the soul touches what is eternal. And if this is true, then each breath is more than survival. It is a hidden ritual, a constant opportunity to awaken. But why don't we see it? Why do we ignore something so close, so intimate? Because we are prisoners of speed. We live running from one thought to another, one task to another, one distraction to another. We breathe, yes, but we breathe as if asleep. What would happen if you dared to wake up? If you dared to notice that secret space, to remain there, even for a second longer? Would you discover that the self you cling to so tightly is not as solid as you think? There are reports of monks who, in freezing mountains, use nothing but their breath to generate heat and survive. There are stories of warriors who calmed their fear in battle by holding the air in their lungs until their mind became sharper than the sword in their hand. And there are testimonies of mystics who, in the stillness of breath, felt themselves dissolve into a vast ocean of consciousness. Are these exaggerations? Or are they windows into a truth that has always been there, waiting for us to pay attention? Think about your own life. How many moments have you lost to anxiety, to fear, to restless thoughts that never stop? How many nights have you spent turning in bed, unable to calm your mind? What if the key to silence that noise is not outside, but inside the very breath that sustains you? Can you imagine the freedom of entering that pause and feeling the weight of the world dissolve, if only for an instant? Blavatsky wrote that the veil covering reality is thin, but most people never notice it. The pause between breaths is one of those veils. Behind it, another dimension of experience awaits. You may call it spirit, energy, consciousness. It does not matter. What matters is that you can touch it, and when you do, your perception of life itself begins to shift. What once felt ordinary becomes sacred. What once felt chaotic becomes harmonious. What once felt limited becomes infinite. The breath is the most intimate companion you will ever have. It was there at your first cry. It will be there at your last sigh. And between those two moments, every breath carries an invitation to remember who you are beyond flesh, beyond thought, beyond fear. To forget this is to remain asleep in a dream of separation. To remember it is to awaken, but beware. Awakening is not comfortable. To pause the breath is to face yourself. In that silence, the mind resists, the ego trembles, the body demands air. Yet if you endure, if you remain present, something extraordinary happens. You realize you are more than your fear, more than your body, more than your mind. The pause becomes not an end, but a beginning. Now ask yourself, are you ready to look into that stillness? Are you ready to discover what Blavatsky and the sages tried to reveal? Or will you continue breathing as if asleep, letting the greatest secret of your existence pass unnoticed with every inhale and exhale? The choice is yours. And remember, this is only the first step, because what you will discover in the next stage goes even deeper, so deep that it may change the way you understand not just breathing, but life itself. Since the beginning of human history, the act of breathing has been seen as more than biology. In every ancient culture, the breath was considered sacred. In India, yogis spoke of prana, the vital force that moves through invisible channels. In China, sages described qi as the energy that flows through heaven and earth. In Hebrew tradition, the word ruach meant the divine breath of God, the spark that animates creation. Helena Blavatsky, with her profound insight, reminded us that these are not separate beliefs, but different fragments of a universal truth. And that truth is simple yet overwhelming. In every breath we are touching something infinite. But here lies the question. If this knowledge was so important, why has it been hidden in symbols, metaphors, and secret teachings? Because humanity often despises what is too simple. We search for miracles in distant stars, when the greatest mystery is found in the lungs of every man and woman. We want to climb mountains, travel to temples, listen to masters, yet the real temple is the silent pause between one inhale and the next. Think about your daily life. You wake up, rush into your responsibilities, check your phone, Feel the pressure of schedules and demands. Breathing becomes shallow, almost forgotten. In that moment, anxiety grows, the heart beats faster, thoughts run uncontrollably. But what would happen if, instead of letting stress dominate, you stopped for a single pause? If you held the breath just long enough to feel silence take over? Imagine yourself in the middle of chaos, traffic, arguments, deadlines, and suddenly, by choice, you create stillness inside. That stillness is power. That stillness is freedom. There is a story told of a samurai who prepared for battle. His enemies were stronger and more numerous, yet he was not afraid. He had mastered the secret of ibuki, a breathing technique where he would retain air at the exact moment before striking. In that suspended silence, he calmed his nerves, sharpened his senses, and moved with precision. To him, the pause between breaths was not weakness, but the weapon of inner control. Do you see the reflection? In your own battles, arguments, challenges, fears, you hold the same weapon. The pause can be your ally if you dare to use it. Monks in the Himalayas, facing temperatures that would freeze any ordinary body, used the breath not only to survive, but to transcend. By entering the pause, they generated heat, dried wet cloths on their skin, and discovered strength beyond normal limits. Are these legends? Or are they evidence that the human being, when aware of the breath, unlocks capacities forgotten by modern life? Science, with all its instruments, now confirms what the mystics whispered in symbols. Researchers have found that when the breath slows, when the pauses lengthen, the nervous system changes. Stress hormones fall, the heart beats in harmony. The brain enters waves of coherence similar to deep meditation. You feel clearer, calmer, even younger. This is not magic. It is a law of life as real as gravity. But it is also a door to something science cannot yet measure: the expansion of consciousness. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you lost control because you could not pause? How many words have you spoken in anger? How many decisions made in fear simply because you did not stop to breathe? Now imagine if you could train yourself to enter the pause at will, to let silence guide you before action. Would your relationships change? Would your choices be wiser? Would you finally feel that you are not a slave to emotion, but master of your own energy? Blavatsky wrote that humanity walks blind among treasures, unable to see the gold buried under its feet. The breath is one of those treasures. The pause is like a hidden jewel, invisible to the distracted, luminous to the awakened. Every tradition, every sage, every mystic left us the same map. The sacred space where the breath rests is the space where the self expands. And yet most of the world continues asleep, suffocating under noise, forgetting the silence that could free them. But you are here, you are listening, and perhaps that means something. Perhaps it is not an accident that you found these words now, at this exact moment, because knowledge without action is only dust. The pause between breaths is waiting for you to enter it, to feel it, to live it. And once you do, your life will not remain the same. The chaos will still exist outside, but inside, you will have found a secret sanctuary, a place where no fear, no anxiety, no darkness can dominate. If you feel this truth vibrating inside you, then I invite you to declare it. Write in the comments right now, "I accept the improvement." These words are not decoration. They are a decision, a pact with yourself to awaken. When you write them, you are telling your mind that change has already begun, and you are not afraid to embrace it. And remember, only the chosen will take the next step. Look at the red button that is waiting in the corner of your screen. It is not just a click. It is a declaration that you choose to walk the path of knowledge, to be part of a circle that dares to see what others ignore. Only the chosen will click the red button to subscribe to this channel and be blessed. Will you be among them? Or will you let the breath pass again and again, without ever discovering the power it hides? There is a strange silence hidden inside you, a silence so brief that most people never notice it. It is the instant between one breath and another, a fragile pause that seems meaningless on the surface but holds the potential to change everything. Ancient traditions insisted that this pause was not emptiness but fullness, a moment where the visible world fades and another reality emerges. Helena Blavatsky often wrote that the greatest truths are not found in the noise of the mind, but in the stillness that follows it. To her, the breath was more than survival. It was a bridge to a hidden dimension. When you inhale, you take in life. When you exhale, you release what you no longer need. But in the space between these two movements, you touch the unknown. Yogis called it kumbhaka, the sacred retention of air. They believed there were two kinds, one after inhalation, where energy spreads through the body, and one after exhalation, where the ego symbolically dies and the mind surrenders. In that moment, something happens that words can barely describe. The body enters a strange equilibrium. The brain begins to alter its chemistry, and perception starts to open to something vast and indescribable. Imagine being suspended over a deep abyss. You are not falling, not climbing, simply suspended in stillness. That is what the pause in breathing feels like when you learn to notice it. Science has discovered that during this suspension, levels of carbon dioxide rise slightly, creating a gentle state of alertness mixed with calm. Neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin are released, producing clarity and even a quiet joy. But mystics would go further. They would say that in that instant, the walls of ordinary perception break down, and the self glimpses the infinite. Can you feel how strange this is? Something as simple as holding your breath for a few seconds can mirror what seekers once traveled thousands of miles to find. Does this mean that the temple you seek is already within you, waiting for your attention to turn inward? Across the mountains of Tibet, monks practiced a method known as tamo, the inner fire. They combined the retention of breath with intense focus, generating heat that allowed them to sit half-naked in snow and melt the ice around their bodies. Western scientists who studied them were astonished, unable to explain how such control could exist. Yet the monks themselves did not see it as extraordinary. To them, it was proof that the human being, when aware of the pause, can command energies far greater than the body alone. Japanese samurai, too, trained with their breath. Before battle, they would practice ibuki, holding the air in their lungs to sharpen their mind and steady their hand. To hesitate in combat meant death, but to pause in breath meant victory. They had discovered that silence inside was stronger than chaos outside. Think of your own struggles. How many times have you faced conflict, fear, or decision? What if you could access that same calm in the very moment you needed it most? The Sufi dervishes of the Middle East, spinning in circles until their bodies dissolved in motion, also controlled their breathing to enter states of ecstasy. Shamans in the Americas modulated the rhythm of their breath during rituals, not to survive, but to step into visions and communicate with dimensions beyond the physical. All of them, separated by continents and centuries, spoke the same language. The pause is sacred, and if they all risked their lives to preserve it, why do we treat it as nothing more than a biological reflex? What would it mean for you if this was not myth but reality? What if you could use the same hidden key that masters, warriors, and mystics have used for centuries? Would your perception of life shift if you knew that every breath carries a door into a greater awareness? Physiology tells us that when you suspend the breath, the body enters a controlled stress that paradoxically awakens hidden strength. It is like standing at the edge of danger but without fear. The heart slows, the blood redistributes, and the nervous system activates capacities normally dormant. Some researchers even suggest that this pause trains resilience, making the body adapt to challenges more quickly. What if every pause in your breath is actually a rehearsal for facing the struggles of life with greater courage? Blavatsky believed that the invisible laws of the universe were mirrored in the simplest human actions. If the cosmos breathes, expanding and contracting, then so do we. And in that cycle, the pause represents the moment of potential, where creation prepares to emerge. In your own breath, the pause is not absence but readiness. It is the fertile soil before the seed grows, the silence before music begins. Have you ever considered that your entire destiny might be hidden in the quality of the space between one breath and another? Close your eyes for a moment. Inhale deeply, exhale completely, and wait. Notice the instinct to rush, to inhale again immediately. That tension, that small discomfort is your ego resisting silence. If you dare to wait, Even for a second longer, something curious happens. The mind softens, the fear loosens, and a subtle expansion begins. This is not imagination. It is a direct experience, one that anyone can test right now. But how many will have the courage to face that instant of nothingness? The world is addicted to movement. We fear stopping because in stillness we might discover truths we are not ready to face. Yet the sages tell us that in the pause, there is no enemy, no chaos, no false identity. There is only presence. And presence is stronger than any illusion. Could it be that the entire mystery of transformation is not about adding more to life, but about daring to stop, to remove, to be silent? Think of water in a lake. When the wind is strong, the surface shakes, and you cannot see below. But when the air is calm, the water becomes a mirror, reflecting the sky and revealing what lies underneath. Your mind is the same. The breath is the wind, and the pause is the calm that allows you to see your own depths. Do you dare to look? Every mystical tradition converges on this point because they understood that transformation does not happen in endless action, but in suspension. The power is not in doing, but in being, and being is revealed in the stillness of the breath. Helena Blavatsky urged her students to look past appearances and to notice the hidden patterns of existence. She would say that the pause is not only about breath, it is the symbol of initiation itself. To enter it is to leave behind the old self and step into the unknown. So now you stand before a choice. You can continue breathing unconsciously, letting every pause pass unnoticed, or you can turn it into a practice, a ritual, a conscious act of discovery. Every time you inhale and exhale, you have a doorway waiting. The question is, will you walk through it? Because what lies on the other side of this doorway is even more extraordinary than you imagine. And as we move deeper, you will see that the pause is not only about clarity or calm. It is about transformation at the core of your being. Are you ready to know what happens when silence itself becomes the teacher? There comes a moment when knowledge must be transformed into practice. Helena Blavatsky often warned that theory without action is like a lamp without fire. It exists, but it does not illuminate. To understand the power of the pause in breathing is one thing, but to live it in your daily life is another. The difference is immense. In theory, you may admire the beauty of a distant mountain, but only by climbing do you feel the air thin, the ground beneath your feet, and the effort that burns in your chest. Breathing consciously is like that climb. It is not about watching from afar. It is about entering the experience with your whole being. Imagine this. A person wakes up already tired, hurrying to prepare for work, their body tense, their mind full of tasks. They drink coffee quickly, scroll through their phone, and rush into the day. By the time they reach work, stress is already dictating their actions. Now imagine the same person pausing for 10 minutes at dawn, sitting quietly, breathing consciously, extending the pauses between inhalation and exhalation. Instead of rushing, they train the mind to dwell in silence. Studies show that people who meditate or practice controlled breathing for even 10 to 15 minutes daily report up to a 40% reduction in perceived stress. Their heart rates stabilize, their immune systems strengthen, and their emotional reactions soften. What seems small, just minutes of conscious breathing, can, over weeks, shift the entire rhythm of a life. A report from the World Health Organization in 2023 revealed that more than 970 million people worldwide suffer from anxiety or stress-related disorders. Imagine that number. Nearly 1 in 8 people on the planet struggling daily with restless thoughts and an agitated body. And yet, inside every one of them lies the same mechanism capable of reducing this suffering: the breath. How ironic that the most universal, accessible medicine is the one most ignored. The solution costs nothing, requires no equipment, and is always present. The only obstacle is awareness. There are unexpected stories everywhere. In Brazil, prison programs introduced meditation and breathing practices to inmates. Within weeks, violent incidents inside the facilities dropped significantly. Guards reported calmer behavior, and many prisoners described sleeping better and feeling less anger. In the United States, schools that replaced detention with mindfulness sessions found that suspensions fell by over 50%. Children who practiced breathing exercises became more focused, less reactive, and more open to learning. These are not isolated miracles. They are proof that when human beings learn to master the pause in their breath, something deep shifts inside them. But let us not idealize it as easy. The first time you try to hold the breath after exhaling, the body may protest. The mind may scream, "Breathe now." Fear rises quickly. That is the ego defending itself, terrified of silence. Yet if you remain calm and surrender to the pause, you begin to notice a strange strength beneath the fear. The body does not collapse, the mind does not vanish. Instead, you realize that you can stay in that emptiness longer than you thought. This discovery is powerful because it mirrors life itself. When challenges arise, we often panic too soon, believing we cannot endure. But the pause teaches otherwise. It shows that you are stronger, more resilient, more capable than you believe. Blavatsky described the pause as a miniature death of the ego. To practice it is to rehearse letting go. This is why ancient mystics claimed that the one who learns to pause the breath learns also to pause the mind. And when the mind is paused, the soul awakens. Perhaps this is why so many people, after only weeks of practice, report feeling not only calmer but more alive, as though colors appear brighter, food tastes richer, and conversations feel deeper. They are not hallucinating, they are finally present. Yet this is only the doorway. Beyond practice lies something even stranger. There are testimonies of advanced yogis who entered states where the breath ceased entirely for long stretches of time. Not forced, not suffocating, but natural. In those moments, they claim to feel united with a vast consciousness beyond body and thought. Skeptics might dismiss these reports, yet modern research on deep meditators shows that breath rates can drop to as little as 2 breaths per minute, and in some cases the pause can extend for more than a minute without strain. The body, instead of suffering, enters a profound rest, the kind usually found only in the deepest phases of sleep. Think about this. When you sleep, your breathing slows, your body repairs, and your mind processes. But what if you could enter a state even deeper than sleep, fully awake? That is what these practices suggest. To be both conscious and resting, both alive and still, both present and dissolved into something greater. What could such an experience reveal about who you really are? Across cultures, there are tales of people who entered long trances, remaining without visible, breathing for hours or even days. In the Himalayas, there are stories of yogis buried under snow, later emerging unharmed. In Orthodox Christian traditions, some saints were said to pray in such stillness that their chests barely moved for entire nights. In the deserts of the Middle East, mystics reported losing the sense of their bodies altogether, while focusing on the rhythm of the divine breath. Are these exaggerations, or hints of an ability buried deep within human potential? Global statistics show that human beings take on average over 20,000 breaths each day. That means more than 7 million breaths in a year. Yet how many of those breaths are truly conscious? How many pauses are noticed, felt, and embraced? For most people, the answer is close to zero. They live their entire lives breathing mechanically, unaware of the key they carry. If even 1% of those pauses were lived with awareness, the impact would be extraordinary. Imagine 70,000 opportunities every year to step into silence, clarity, and renewal. That possibility is already inside you. Blavatsky insisted that the visible world is only the shadow of deeper realities. The pause is where the shadow thins and the light passes through. In daily practice, it may begin as a tool for calm, for health, for resilience, but as it deepens, it becomes something greater. It becomes a portal. In that portal, people have reported losing the weight of fear, the noise of thought, and even the sense of separation from the universe. For some, it is a taste of eternity. You might wonder, why is silence so frightening? Because in silence, the false self cannot hide. In the pause, masks fall away. The stories you tell yourself about who you are, the worries that define you, the endless tasks that control you, all dissolve, and what remains is raw, unfiltered existence. Some resist this, afraid of emptiness, but those who stay discover that the emptiness is not empty at all. It is alive. It is awareness itself. It is the foundation of everything. So what happens when you continue this journey? When the pause becomes not a practice but a state of being? Something remarkable. The breath no longer controls you, you control it. The mind no longer dominates, it serves. The world no longer feels chaotic. It reflects the calm you carry within. This is the beginning of mastery, not of others but of yourself. And beyond mastery lies union. There comes a point, described in many traditions, where the breath itself dissolves, not through force, not through death, but through transcendence. The body remains alive, yet the need for oxygen seems suspended. Science struggles to explain it, but mystics call it samadhi, the absorption into pure consciousness. Blavatsky suggested that in these states, the individual no longer experiences separation from the whole. Time disappears, the self disappears, and only the eternal remains. Picture this, sitting in complete stillness, no thought, no breath, no movement, yet more awake than ever before. In that silence, there is no question, no fear, no boundary. There is only being. Some have called it God, others the Absolute, others the true self. Words fail, but the experience is undeniable for those who have touched it. Could it be that this is the destiny hidden in every breath you take? This is the mystery of the pause, not just as a technique for calm, but as a path to awakening. To practice it is to step onto that path. To deepen it is to approach the threshold. And to cross it is to discover that you were never merely a body breathing in a world of matter. You were, and always are, consciousness itself, eternal and unbound. As you sit now, aware of your own breathing, know this. Every inhale, every exhale, every pause is an invitation to calm, to strength, to discovery, to transformation. The question is not whether the doorway exists, it is whether you will walk through it. Because once you do, the life you know will expand into something far greater than you ever imagined. And the pause that once felt like nothing will reveal itself as everything. There comes a time in every journey where words must give way to action. We have traveled through the mysteries of the breath, the wisdom of traditions, the science of silence, and the stories of those who dared to pause. And now we arrive at the final revelation, the place where knowledge must become practice, where understanding must become transformation. Helena Blavatsky often said that truth is not something you believe, but something you experience. And the breath is the simplest and most profound way to experience it. Think of this moment as a turning point. Until now, you have listened, reflected, and perhaps even imagined what it would be like to live differently, to feel calmer, to touch the silence that lies beyond the noise of daily life. But imagining is not enough. Change requires a plan, a clear and practical path that can be followed step by step until it becomes part of who you are. The plan is simple, yet powerful. It does not demand that you change your entire life at once. It only asks for minutes of awareness, minutes that will, over time, alter the rhythm of your mind and heart. Begin with this. Each morning before you look at your phone or start your tasks, sit quietly for 10 minutes. Breathe deeply, hold the breath gently for a few seconds. Exhale, and notice the pause. Do this in cycles, calmly and consistently. Imagine that with every inhale you are drawing in light, with every exhale you are releasing weight, and in every pause you are meeting your true self. Consistency is the key. Do not expect miracles in a single day, but if you remain faithful for 40 days, you will notice changes that go beyond explanation. Your thoughts will feel lighter, your emotions less turbulent, and your perception more alive. Science supports this. Daily breathing practices, even for short periods, improve sleep, lower stress hormones, and increase clarity of thought. But beyond science lies the real secret. You will begin to notice the presence of silence in your life, a silence that does not leave you even in the middle of noise. The second step of the plan is integration. Do not leave the practice only for the morning. Use it in daily life. Before a difficult conversation, stop and breathe. Before making a decision, stop and breathe. When you feel anger rising, stop and breathe. Each pause becomes a small sanctuary, a reminder that you are not a prisoner of reactions but the master of your own energy. Blavatsky believed that the path of mastery is not about escaping the world, but about transforming your relationship with it. The breath gives you this power. The third step is reflection. At the end of the day, sit for 5 minutes and observe how the pauses changed your experiences. Did you notice moments when silence helped you avoid conflict? Did you feel calmer, more centered, or more present? Writing down these reflections, even briefly, reinforces the new pattern in your mind. It is a dialogue with yourself, a way of recognizing that transformation is truly happening. The fourth step is expansion. Once you feel comfortable with daily practice, extend the pauses. Try holding the breath for longer after exhaling, allowing yourself to remain in the stillness. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, but over time, you will discover that you can rest there peacefully. This expansion is not only physical but spiritual. It is in these longer pauses that many practitioners report experiences of deep connection, a sense of unity, or even visions that words cannot describe. Whether you experience these or not, the effect is always profound. Greater calm, deeper presence, and a clearer sense of who you are. And finally, the fifth step is sharing. Transformation deepens when it is not only kept inside but offered to others. You do not need to preach or teach. Simply live the practice. People around you will notice the calm in your eyes, the patience in your voice, the strength in your presence. By embodying the power of the pause, you inspire others without words. This is how truth spreads, not by imposition, but by example. Now, stop and ask yourself, are you willing to take these steps? Are you willing to dedicate minutes each day to discover the treasure hidden in your breath? Are you ready to transform silence into your greatest strength? Remember, the breath has been with you since the first moment of your life, and it will remain until the last. To honor it now is to honor life itself. Blavatsky reminded her students that the path of awakening is not for the indifferent, but for the brave. To pause is to face yourself, and to face yourself is to awaken. This is not the end of your journey. It is only the beginning of a new way of living, where every breath carries meaning and every pause carries eternity. If these words resonate in your heart, then take the next step now. Subscribe to this channel so that you do not walk alone on this path. Click the like button so that this message can reach others who also need it. And share your questions, your doubts, or your experiences in the comments. You may write anonymously if you wish, but write. Because when you put your truth into words, even silently, you confirm your decision to grow. The breath is your key, the pause is your doorway, and the choice is in your hands. Will you remain asleep, or will you awaken to the life that is waiting for you? The answer begins with a single pause. Begin today.